guess how old do you guys think the city is? We start now.
200 years?
200 years. Older than that.
6,000 years?
6,000 years. You can
5,000.
read it somewhere, but it's the wrong answer. It's
5,000.
younger than that. 5,000 years old. Wonderful. So why did I want an answer? I want to incentivize you from the beginning to not be shy. Please answer my questions and you get a pink candy called the onion, which doesn't taste like an onion. It's like grapefruit or something. All right, let's start with the history. The city is 5,000 years old. So 5,000 years, a group of people migrated here and made a small town. What can I tell you about them? Nothing. Why? Because they were a small Neolithic community of people without an alphabet. They couldn't write. We have no knowledge about them. So we're going to skip them and go directly to our first civilization here. You were raising hands. Do you know what was the first civilization here? Not?
No.
No.
I thought that Sofia has also another name before it was called Sofia. But
All
I'm
right.
not sure about it.
Okay. You'll have the chance to earn a candy later. We have the first people that came here called the Thracian people. So what can I tell you about the Thracian people? They were a small, decentralized tribe of people that we don't know much about because they didn't have an alphabet. Everything we know about them, we know from their neighbors in the south, the Greek people. So what did the Greek people write about the Thracians? Well, they're very aggressive, they smell like horses, and all they do is drink wine and get wasted. So that's about what the Greek people wrote about the Thracians. Is this true? Yep.
They love horse riding.
Yeah.
Horse? Alright.
It's horse riding.
I didn't get it, but
The Thracians loved horse riding.
alright.
They were aggressive and they were written in Iliad. Almost Iliad.
Alright. I'm having some mixed. I got a little bit confused. I'll move directly to because I didn't quite get it. It's loud, and I'm sorry. I got a little bit confused. Let's keep up with the Thracians and what the Greek wrote about them. Okay, I told you they smell like horses and love drinking wine. Is this true? Not really. It's a little bit biased. So that was a biased description, but the Thracian people actually loved horses. They loved horses. It was a sacred animal. And in the winter, when it was cold, the poor population, they slept in the same room with the horses. All right? So they might have smelled a little bit like horses. Concerning wine, what about the wine? How did it work? They had many gods, but the main god was Dionysus. He's a very good god. He's the god of wine and pleasure. Fascinating god. So this god, Dionysus, they had stone temples concerning Dionysus. Big of massive stone. This massive stone, this big, right in the middle there was a canal. And in the canal, on ceremonial days, the Thracian people let the wine free flowing. So imagine wine free flowing, the priest gets there, drinks directly from a fountain, gets wasted, speak to the god, and convey the message to the general population. Amazing, fascinating religion. I loved it, but unfortunately it's not too popular nowadays. So this is about the Thracian people that were the first civilization that settled down right here. Bulgarians, until now, we haven't heard about them. First century, and now it's a candy question. I think this will be an easy question that you can, some of you at least, answer. First century, there was a big empire that conquered the entire region in the first century. Which might this be? The Roman Empire. Who was first? This mister right here with the Roman Empire. Roman Empire conquers this entire region. So our city becomes a Roman city. So now what do we have? Thracians and Romans, and no Bulgarians yet. 6th century. A group of people that you guys think when you think about usually Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, Czechs, Polacks, Slovaks migrated from the north of Europe, and they're called the Slavic people, the Slavs. They migrated from the north, came here, settled down. So now what do we have? Thracians, Romans, and Slavic. No Bulgarians yet. And in the 7th century, we finally have our ancestors called the Bulgar tribes or the Proto-Bulgarians migrate right here. So 4 groups of people live here together. They hate each other. Thracians, Romans, Slavic, Proto-Bulgarians, all of them living together, they don't like each other. They hate each other. And still the Bulgarian state begins in the year 681. Unlike many countries around the world, our country didn't start because of love, peace, national values. It started purely as a military alliance between the Thracians, the Slavic, and the Proto-Bulgarians. They hated each other, they just hated the Romans more. They wanted independence from the Roman Empire, so that's how the Bulgarian state was started. The greatest country on the planet. For the next 2 hours only. Only for the next 2 hours. We go to the Middle Ages. I'm not gonna bore you with thousands of events. Middle Ages, Bulgaria had great moments, not great moments. Ups, downs, ups, downs, ups, downs, until another big empire in the 14th century conquered this entire region. Can you guess the name? Who said it? This guy? Oh, she was second, so I will do it like this.
Yeah.
Because she was second. Man, I already get one and they're too caloric, you know? Ottoman Empire. Ottomans conquered this entire region. So our country disappears from the map. No Bulgaria for 500 years. Until Bulgaria disappears and then appears again in the 19th century. And we come to modern history. Until World War II. Bulgaria is a small country that is independent but highly influenced, let's say, by the great European powers. The Russian Empire, the great British Empire, Austro-Hungarians, the French, the great European powers. But one country becomes the most influential in Bulgaria until World War II. This is Germany. This and a few other reasons results in Bulgaria joining the losing side of World War II. Bulgaria joined the losing side, the Axis. We lose the war, and fortunately for some people, very unfortunately for other people, we became a totalitarian communist state. Bulgaria becomes a communist country that is not part of the Soviet Union. I want you at least to know this, as it's a very common misconception. We never joined the Soviet Union. We became an independent communist country. By independent, not very independent. And now we come to nowadays. Bulgaria transitions to a democracy in the 90s. But it's not very easy to become a democracy, right? You cannot just say, now I want to be a democracy. You need a little bit more time. So the 90s and the early 2000s, they were the toughest modern day period in our country. What do I mean by tough and hard? Economical instability, corruption, organized crime, mafia syndicates, powerful violence, and all of this skyrockets out of control. Our country, Bulgaria, bankrupts fully in the year 1997. We have hyperinflation of 500%. What does this mean? It doesn't mean Starbucks is getting expensive. It means every single person in the country loses all the money they had. Every single Bulgarian loses everything in the year of 1997. The first 10 years of the new millennia bring a little bit hope. 2004, 2007, and 2010, we had 3 more events. We joined NATO, then in 2007 we joined the European Union, and in 2010 we started the Free Sofia tour. Very important. Since 2012, Bulgaria has been one of the fastest growing economies in the European Union. This will be the last fact you're gonna learn. And this was my attempt of summarizing the entire history of the country. I know it's a lot. You don't need to remember everything. Each and every part, we're gonna see through the buildings we look at. So from Thracians, Roman Empire, some Slavic and Bulgarian people, Middle Ages, Ottomans, then independence, World War II, communists, democracy. I'm gonna tell you a little bit more about it. Sounds good? Any questions? All right, let's move a little bit. I want to show you the church and tell you just a few words about it. All right, wonderful. Look at this building. That's a church, obviously, and it has many stories connected to it. I'm going to tell you the only interesting one. Okay, Bulgaria before World War II. So imagine Europe before World War II. It's a lot of political events. And in Bulgaria, we have a lot of violence. Why? So Bulgaria is ruled by a system that is a constitutional monarchy. We have a monarch, like a king. What's the Eastern European word for a king? We don't call them kings in Eastern Europe, we call them a tsar. We call them a tsar, which is the same as a king. We have a monarch and we have a parliament. And in the parliament, there are many political parties fighting for influence, but one party is the bad boys. Who are they? The Communist Party. Why is the Communist Party the bad boys of Bulgaria? They want a revolution. Just like the Bolsheviks who made the revolution in Russia, our Communist Party also makes a revolution in Bulgaria. We have a massive revolution, but in Bulgaria, not successful. The communists fail the revolution, they get banned from the government, and they become a decentralized terrorist organization with one main purpose: to kill our Tsar. His name, you can try to remember for later, we're gonna meet him again, is Boris III. So if you guys are the communists, how are you guys going to kill the Tsar? Are you going to shoot him? Are you going to stab him, poison him? Well, you guys decide to kill him in the church. How? Okay, very good idea. But how are you gonna bomb the church? How do you know the monarch is there? Well, this is used for funerals. So as he said, a bomb. Is this the loudest day on the planet? Are you guys pranking me? Can you hear me? Can you focus on my voice and not the... It's a joke. It's a joke. It's just a joke.
Johnny, go, go, go. Go, Johnny, go, go, go. Go, Johnny, go, go, go. Down street, there. Go, Johnny, go, go, go. Johnny Eagles, yeah.
There is someone working against you today. Where are you guys? Where are you guys from? Where? Europe. All right.
We are Dutch, but we live.
Guys, make a little circle here. I guess this will be a loud tour. I need to place myself. Let's just make a little place for the people to pass back. Come a little closer. All right. So we want, let's get back to this church. We want to kill the Tsar and bomb the Tsar. So how do we make sure he's here to bomb? We'll have a funeral. We're going to make a funeral here, as this is the official church for funerals of the monarchical family. So we are gonna kill someone important, and on the funeral we're gonna shoot the Tsar. All right? So how are we gonna plant the bombs? Well, we pay money to a corrupt priest working inside the church. So he helps them smuggle 25 kilograms of raw explosives. right under the roof of the church, 25 kilograms of explosives are smuggled. They smuggled the explosives on the 16th of April 1925. A funeral actually starts. The day before, they killed an important general. The funeral starts, hundreds of people are inside. The communists detonate 25 kilograms of explosives and the entire roof of the church collapses on top of all of the people inside the building. 160 people get killed immediately, smashed by the stones. Bulgaria loses more military generals in this terrorist attack than the 2 world wars combined in total. A lot of women, children, innocent people, 100 more people get injured seriously, die later in hospital, or get paralyzed for life. This becomes the bloodiest, deadliest, most violent terrorist attack in our entire history. Until today, we haven't had a more violent terrorist attack. But the Tsar survives. The main target, they did the entire terrorist attack to kill one person, Boris III, he survives. Can you guess how he survived?
He wasn't there.
He wasn't there. Who said it? Wasn't there. But why was he not there?
He didn't like the person.
Good guess, but no. Nope. Good guess. Very good, but no.
He was sick.
Nope. Very good guess, but no. He relied.
He sent
Nope. He relied on a very annoying characteristic that sometimes we Bulgarians have. He was late. The Tsar was actually late for the funeral. And that's interesting. Why was he late? Tsar Boris, the day before, they had an assassination attempt against his life. They bombed his car. They bombed his car, killed his driver, and the Tsar was attending the much smaller funeral of his driver. So he was 5-10 minutes late for this funeral, and this is how he survived. So please, if we Bulgarians are late, please don't be angry at us. We tend to sometimes be late, but it can save our life, you know? It's for safety reasons. So that's the story of the bloodiest, deadliest terrorist attack. Later, I have happy endings on the tour and cheerful stories, I promise. Let's move on, guys. Where are you guys going? Which place? Alright. I only been to Marseille, Avignon, Nice, yeah, and when the funeral starts and they believe the Trump it was not very well prepared. Yeah, that's true, but it actually did them a bad favor because they didn't kill the Tsar. The Tsar was managed very fast to pack up the armies, and they did a lot of prosecutions on the communists. After the terrorist attack was the bloodiest night of police violence in the country. Around 100 people were killed without a sentence one night, all of them communists. The leaders of the Communist Party of the resistance, many of them were killed. And the Tsar managed to organize it very fast. Bombing was paid by the Soviets.
So it's actually the Soviets who wanted to get rid of it. Oh, yeah.
They were financing the Bulgarian communists. There was an organization called the Communist International. Yeah, well, they financed it. Guys, come in. All right. is not a candy question because it's too easy. What's the name of the city? Sofia. All right, wonderful. So some people say Sofia, some people say Sofia. We locals say Sofia. But if you ask the locals what's the story about the name, they will tell you a story about Saint Sofia. So the city is named officially after Saint Sofia. Who is she? She had 3 beautiful daughters. And apparently the story goes they were the most beautiful girls in the entire Roman Empire. I personally haven't seen them, so I cannot tell you if it's true, but they were called Faith, Hope, and Love. So Faith, Hope, and Love, they, her daughters, were Christian at a time when Christianity was not legal in the Roman Empire. So when the emperor learned about it, he found them, tortured them aggressively, and not only they were beautiful, but Faith, Hope, and Love, they were very brave. They were killed because of their faith. So when their mom learned about it, she stopped eating, stopped drinking water, and she finally passed away. So that's the story of the symbol of the city. And if we stop some random local people and ask them why is the city called this way, they will tell you this story very often. We celebrate the holiday of our city on the 17th of September, which is the day of Saint Sofia. The statue was unveiled in the year 2000, but unfortunately, after it was unveiled, all the historians in the city became angry. Why? Everything I told you until now is fake news. It's a myth. It's not real. Our city is actually not named after this lady. It's named after a building we're gonna see with a much less dramatic story. But somehow, this one historian, only one guy, pushed it and it became the official story that we study in books, read in Wikipedia pages, I learn in school, you have in movies, we celebrate the holiday of the city, not the real statue, not the real symbol, fake news. Later I'm going to tell you the real one, which is not that as dramatic. And just to make it even funnier, do we have any Italians on the tour? No Italians? Well, the author of the statue lived in Italy, and he was inspired usually for his statues by Italian cinema. So he got inspired for the face by another Sofia when she was younger, Sofia Loren. So not only this is historically inaccurate, but the face is inspired by the great Sofia Loren. I personally have no problem with Sofia Loren being the symbol of the city, but they didn't ask me. So guys, this is the official story. You can read it and hear it in many places. Dramatic, but not real. I'll tell you the much different real story later on the tour. Let's move on. Saint Sofia, apparently, she was a healer, very wise woman. And she has many stories connected to her, not only about her daughters. So one of the stories is that she could heal people by prayer. But it's most of it is like, let's just make a circle here. Can you guys come a little closer so that we can be a little bit more packed and look at your beautiful faces? All right, let's talk a little bit about religion. What's the dominant religion here? Well, officially Orthodox Christianity. Eastern Orthodox Christianity. How many people are Eastern Orthodox? Well, around 85% of the population officially is Orthodox Christian. What is this number? That's just an official number. The real number we don't know because everyone says they're Christian, but in Bulgaria, religion has lost its power in society as most of the post-communist countries. Most of the post-communist countries, religion is not too popular. Second biggest religion, Islam. The Muslim population of the country is around 9% of the country. Most of them don't live in Sofia. In Sofia we have approximately 1% Muslim population. Most of the Muslim population is from Lebanese, Turkish, and since the wars, like everywhere, basically everywhere in Europe, we have a lot of Afghani, Iraqi, and Syrian refugees because of the wars. In terms of mosques, the Banja Basha mosque here is the only functioning mosque in the city. Catholics, Protestants, altogether less than 1%. And a third group of people, in the further back, we have a black dome. So what kind of dome this is? It's a synagogue. That's the only synagogue, Jewish temple in the city. So what about the Jewish history of Bulgaria? Well, that's an interesting one. Why? Well, because before World War II, when we did statistics, we had 50,000 Jewish people in Bulgaria. After World War II, at the end of the 60s, Bulgaria had 5,000 Jewish people left in the country. So what happened? What's the history behind it? Well, first of all, let's ask ourselves a question. Why did Bulgaria join the Axis in World War II? Why did Bulgaria ally itself to Germany, Italy, to Japan? What was the deal with it? Well, a few reasons. First of all, Bulgaria, our economy, 66% of import and export before World War II were trade with Germany. Second of all, our military elite was pro-Germany. General population, not too much, because the Nazis didn't have propaganda here. But the main reason, and there is one main reason that we joined the war, was a strategic one. And this was Greece. You know, if you're a student of history, I don't know if you remember in school, etc., if you watched it in a documentary, the Italian army in World War II had a very important job to take over the Mediterranean, and they failed. They failed with Greece. So the Axis needed to send them support. They needed a strong logistical partner on the Balkans, and the partner was Bulgaria. In 1941, after being neutral in the beginning of the war, the German army was coming and they asked us, do you guys want to help us peacefully? Or maybe you want to try and do something about it? And very fast, Bulgaria said, we are joining the Axis. And in 1941, we joined the Axis voluntarily, and we signed and declared a law called the Law for Protection of the Nation. So who do we protect the nation from? The Jewish people in the country. The Bulgarian army nationalized all of the property, the businesses, the homes of all of the Jewish people in the country. Every single home, every single business was taken away by the Bulgarian army. The Jewish people in the country were not allowed to go to hospitals to get treated if there were Bulgarian people inside. It was a deeply segregational law. But the main purpose of this law was that Bulgaria needed to deport 50,000 Jewish people to the concentration camps in Western Europe. But now there is a problem. We have the quota to deport the Jewish people, but the regular population is not anti-Semitic. So the Nazis didn't have the time to take over, you know, the newspapers that they started doing in the 30s. They didn't have this in Bulgaria. They didn't take over the movies to brainwash the people, the newspapers, the political life. So the general people, every time the army tried to deport the Jewish people, there were massive protests against it. Massive clashes with the government. So now what do you do? Well, we relied on a very annoying Bulgarian characteristic, procrastination and delaying, waiting for tomorrow. Every time the Nazis asked us, when are you going to deport the Jewish people? We said, give us 3 more months and we will start with the deportation. This worked until 1943. In 1943, in Europe, it started the so-called final solution of the Jewish affairs. So what did the final solution mean? The extermination of the Jewish race in Europe. So in Bulgaria, it started in the second biggest city called Plovdiv. This time the Bulgarian army did it in secrecy, so the regular people don't learn about it. They emptied the train station. They had the Jewish people ready in 2 of the trains, and they got them prepared to deport them. But there was a spy on the train station that marked a very neurotic chain of events in Bulgaria. The spy went to the biggest opposer of the deportation, Bishop Kirill, a patriarch of the Christian Orthodox Church. He found the patriarch, woke him up in the middle of the night, and the patriarch woke up his most loyal priests. They went to the train station and they started protesting and going from house to house to wake up more people in the city. So what happened was a massive violence erupted. The Bulgarian army started to beat up all of the protesters in the train station. Massive violence erupts. The patriarch sends his priest to wake up the entire city. More and more people wake up. The bishop, Kirill, goes to the general responsible for the deportation and tells the general, wherever those trains filled with Jewish people are going, I'm going with them. And this is certain death. So he laid down in front of the train, on the tracks, laying down in front of the train and saying, start the engine and pass over my dead body if you want to start the engine. Massive violence. More and more people come. The Bulgarian army is beating the Bulgarian protesters. The general decides to stop the deportation in the month of March 1943. This becomes the last attempt of deporting the Bulgarian Jewish citizens. In the same year, August, our monarch, do you remember the name of the Tsar that they bombed? Boris III. He's invited to a personal meeting with the big boss, Hitler himself. They kind of had a very heated relationship through the war as allies. Boris III went there in August of 43. You can imagine they didn't discuss Eurovision contest or how to style, mustaches were trendy at the time. It was a very heated conversation. Boris III came back to Bulgaria. He survived the terrorist attack, but he didn't survive August of 1943. He died in mysterious circumstances. And we don't know what happened. We actually don't know. He maybe got a heart attack because of all the stress. Maybe he was poisoned by the Nazis who are now starting to not like him because he was not helping with the deportation. Maybe he was poisoned by his big enemies, the communists who were bombing churches to kill him. So we don't know. The war ended. Bulgaria became a communist country. The Jewish population of Bulgaria was the only people allowed to leave Bulgaria and migrate to another country during communism. No one in Bulgaria was allowed during communism to leave. Only the Jewish population migrated to Israel. This story is important because it marks Bulgaria as the only country in the history of Europe in World War II to save its entire Jewish population during World War II. Bulgaria is the only example of that in Europe during World War II. The only other 2 countries that are notable mentions are Albania and Denmark. If you're interested, you can read about how the history happened in Albania and Denmark as well. Also very interesting. I'll finish here by being objective. I don't want to make it seem all happy and beautiful for us. Our army took part, the Bulgarian army took part of the deportation of 11,500 people from Greece and Yugoslavia, non-Bulgarian citizens that our population never learned about. So they couldn't protest. From those 11,500 people that the Bulgarian army helped deport, 12 people survived World War II. So that's the story of Bulgarian World War II. At the same time, a very bright example of being the only country in Europe to save up its entire Jewish population. And on the other hand, we're humbled to say that we were part of the Axis, we were a segregational country, and our army took part of the deportation of 11,500 people that were non-Bulgarian. They were parts of Greece, Yugoslavia. They were not only Jewish, but gypsies, communists, etc. But still, we took part of this as well. So at the same time, we are very proud to be a very bright example and very humbled from our past. It's a very important story for us. Next story is a more cheerful one, I promise, this time for real. For real. Any questions? We're good? Let's move on, guys. Where are you from, sir? I didn't ask you.
Puerto Rico?
All right. Far away.
Yeah.
Are you now traveling to Europe?
Yes, well, I did. My last topic
You came to see me. Lazy spot? Alright. There are players and there are plays. Okay, what was the name of the first civilization I told you about right here with the T? The Thracians. Alright. So I told you a funny part about them. How did they smell apparently? Okay, that was the Greek version of stuff. How do I smell? I smell like flowers, obviously, like perfume. How did Bulgarians smell like 200 years ago? I don't know about this, but the hygiene was very different in Bulgaria 200 years ago. Why? Well, Bulgarians and all of Europe, Eastern Europe, Central Europe, we had a shower in a public bathhouse. So that's here is the public bathhouse, the central one. So how does it work? It's very interesting. Every neighborhood had a public bathhouse, but this was the central and most beautiful one. How does it work? There are two types of tickets. So there are two types of tickets in order to get clean. First and second class tickets. So all of you guys, if it's winter, you take a bath once a week on a Sunday. So the entire city goes to a public bathhouse and they enter to get clean. Second class tickets. How does it work? You wait in a line, you buy a ticket, you go inside. Ladies and gentlemen are separated because you get completely naked. You take all the clothes as the Lord created you, you get naked, you wash yourself by yourself, and you go to a person that we call telak. And the telak person, there is a lady telak and a male telak. The gentleman, the telak for the gentleman only scrubs your back. He cleans your back. For the ladies, the telak not only scrubs your back, but washes your hair. Natural, vegan, sustainable shampoo, you know, conditioner, everything. I'm joking, of course. The lady telak washes your hair. So every lady in the city had a personal knowledge. This is included in the price of your ticket, but you need to give the lady telak a coin as a tip, you know, just to tip her. Because if you don't tip, the lady telak is gonna pinch some hair out of your hair, be very rude. So you need to give her a coin. Okay, so you get clean in the public bathhouse, you go out, and this entire square, this area was the most social place in the city. A very social place. This was the Facebook, this was the Tinder, this was the dating app. Many marriages were created on this square because this is all the place you can meet people, you know, socialize. So what's the difference between second class and first class? So the first class ticket holders, they had unlimited time inside and they had special keys for special rooms inside the building. Those rooms, you unlock it, you go in, there are only beds. inside the rooms. Only beds. Official version is that you sleep there after you get clean. Today we have some younger visitors on the tour, so I'm not going to be too explicit, but the reality was that those rooms the VIPs used for other purposes between grown-up individuals. So the public bathhouse was a very dynamic, very interesting place, especially for the VIP people who had special keys to those special rooms. Why is the public bathhouse this beautiful building? It's built in a Neo-Byzantine architectural style, a typical style for the city of Sofia. Why is it built here? Because Sofia is built, a lot of people don't know, on 55 natural hot water springs. The entire city has a lot of natural hot water springs. Unfortunately, our government, from the left, right and center, all of them have ignored this and not worked on reopening this as a public bathhouse. Our organization, many other organizations, we have filed a file in the beginning of the mayor's last term that this will bring a lot of money for tourism. They promised us they're gonna reopen this by the end of their term, and they forgot. All of the politicians in Bulgaria, basically all of them, they have short-term memory without long-term. So this is now still a museum. It's not a public bathhouse, and we can only drink some of the water and not swim inside it. By the way, I'll finish here. Elderly population in Sofia will promise you this is the healthiest water for your heart. Very healthy water. In the European Union, Bulgaria is first place of cardiovascular disease. So I don't know if the water works that well. But we can take some of the sip of the mineral water. Let's move on, guys. Two times it stopped being once in the 50s, then drink first so you know it's not poisonous. We have a witness. Healthy, healthy, healthy. Make my heart better. I forgot my ex-girlfriend. Yes. The springs, they come from 500 to 750 meters below the ground. If anyone needs some water, now is one of the times. Where did you say you're from? Here? Lazy stop.
Ouais.
All of us here? Alright, comrades, comrades, comrades. We can talk about communism here. This is how every Eastern European talks in American movie. His name is Boris. He comes from Russia or Albania. He's gonna kidnap you. Or he's a communist. Why talk about communism here? Well, because the architecture. The architecture here allows us to talk a little bit more about communism. This building right there, well, that's the most communist building in the city center. As this used to be the headquarters of the Bulgarian Communist Party. This was the headquarters of the Bulgarian Communist Party. This is built in an architectural style called Neoclassicism. Neoclassicism in Western Europe, and in Eastern Europe we call it Stalinka or Stalinism, because this was Mr. Stalin's favorite architectural style. So the architectural style of our city was very different before World War II. The architectural style was much more similar to a German or an Austrian town because of our political and economical connection. When we got into World War II, we declared war on our new enemies, America and Great Britain. We believe this was symbolic declaration of war. because we want to show our alliance to the Axis. At the end of the war, they dropped not very symbolic bombs on top of the city. Sofia, our city, was bombed to the ground. 12 major airstrikes, 13,000 buildings were destroyed. The city of Sofia was bombed to the ground, and after we became a communist country, the communists that came to power had a very different idea of aesthetics. So nowadays, when you look at the building, on top of it, right on top of the building, there is the Bulgarian flag. During communism, it was not the Bulgarian flag. Can you guess what was there? Communist flag? No, but a good guess. Russian flag? No.
It says something from Stalin.
Something communist?
Yeah, something red, probably.
Something red, probably?
Yeah.
The Red Star, and I take this for me. The statue of Saint Sofia, looking over there. Who was standing there during communism? It was not Saint Sofia.
Stalin.
Stalin? No. Lenin.
Yeah.
Can you catch? Can you catch? Mr. Lenin himself. Lenin always looking at the headquarters of the Communist Party. So what can I tell you about communism? In order to talk to you about communism deeply, historically, I will need maybe 3 hours. I don't have them, so I'll tell you 2 personal stories from my family that will show you 2 very extreme opinions and lifestyles about the regime. And we're going to start with my grandfather from my mother's side. His name was Koicho. And this guy, Koicho, he was a communist before World War II. And as we already talked, the communists, they were prosecuted before the war. They were criminalized. It was not very easy to be a communist. I grew up with stories that Koicho, my grandfather, was a war hero during World War II. In reality, my grandfather actually deserted from the Bulgarian army, went to hide in Serbia in a communa, and didn't do anything during the war. But because he was loyal to the Communist Party, when he came back to Bulgaria after the war, he became a mayor of a fairly big town. My grandfather was a loyalist to the party, and my entire family was very privileged on my mother's side during communism because of his loyalty to the Communist Party. So you can imagine I grew up with stories how communism was a very nice period on my mother's side. On my father's side, it's very different story. My grandfather was a monarchical officer during World War II. His military training was in Germany and Austria. He was an officer that met the monarch himself. He was pro-Axis. So when Bulgaria became a communist country, my grandfather was killed without a sentence in his own house, hanged in his own backyard in the middle of the night. His 2 younger brothers, who were also lower ranked officers in the army, were imprisoned for 20 years in a labor camp just because they were against the communists. My entire family was labeled as enemies of the people. And even my father is born in the year of 1963. My father, born in the middle of communism, he was labeled as enemies of the people, an enemy of the people, just because he was born in a family like this. He didn't do anything. Just from his day one on this earth, he was labeled as an enemy of the state. This gives you a very opposite example. So 2 opposite examples. If you were a loyalist to the Communist Party, you had a privileged life. If you were an opposer, a democrat, someone that believed in the monarchy, someone that believed in the previous government, in democracy, you were underprivileged, prosecuted. These are 2 very different lifestyles during communism. And if you wanted to be a normal person, neither privileged, neither prosecuted, my advice and the advice from the past would be, don't write about politics, don't joke about politics, don't talk about politics. And my parents' generation, they joke, don't even think about politics. This was the best option, as you needed to be very careful. What do you say? What do you joke about? How do you think about those things? So this shows you two extremes. But what about nowadays? What do people think about communism nowadays? It's not very simple. Not everyone hates it or loves it. Some people even have a nostalgia. They miss communism. So why do they miss it? Many reasons. Maybe they were young at this period and they actually miss the younger days, but there is a much smarter reason behind it. Some people miss communism because it became a democracy. What did I tell you happened in 97?
Bankruptcy.
We bankrupted. So 8 years of democracy and capitalism, we bankrupted. After 8 years, full collapse of the country, hyperinflation. So yes, you guys were prosecuted during communism, but imagine winter of 97. There is an electricity regime, you're cold, you're waiting for 3 hours, there were huge lines, state printed coupons, as money was worth nothing, to buy 6 eggs, a loaf of bread and 1 kilogram of rice, because the money are gone. So in 97, 8 years of democracy, and you're thinking, is this democracy? Is this what it is supposed to? So a certain amount of people started to miss the previous regime because those years, the 90s, the early 10s, the early 2000s were very tough for them. And they started saying, well, maybe communism was restrictive, totalitarian, we had certain rights cut off, but it was not so bad. It was not bankrupt. Obviously, for the last 10, 11, 12 years, Bulgaria has been one of the fastest growing economies in the European Union. Things have started to finally recover after the bankruptcy of 97. We finally see Bulgaria developing fast and becoming a stable country. And this kind of nostalgic feeling has went a little bit down, I personally believe, but you can ask someone else, you can make your own research. But still, the Bulgarian Communist Party in Bulgaria, rebranded as the Bulgarian Socialist Party, has around 9% of the votes. Many of them come from people that miss the regime, are nostalgic about it. If you want to learn more about communism, marketing, we have 2 communist products. We have a communist tour every single day. The irony, it's not free. Our communist tour is our not free tour. It's a capitalist tour in a sense. It's 28 leva. If you feel to learn more about communism, and not only in communism was bad and sad and scary, it's a very objective. We try, I don't know if we are, but we try to be objective, tell you some positives about communism, negatives, and how it actually worked, how the economy worked, what was the planned economy, the nationalization. We try to give you some objective idea about how communism worked in reality. Feel free to join it, but it's 2.5 hours. And if you want something chill, but still learn about communism, we also have a communist museum called the Red Flat. Amazing experience. This was a little marketing I needed to do. And now if you have any communist questions, I can try and answer. If you're interested in anything about it, feel free to ask. No questions today? All right, feel free to go then. Let's do it, guys. Are you uploading them?
Not yet.
We Bulgarians, we are very good at infrastructure. So good, this road has stayed here for the last 2,000 years. I'm joking, we are not that good. There is only one civilization that is actually that good, and these are the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire was so good at infrastructure that they built the street and it stayed here for 2,000 years. And this was the ancient Roman city. So someone told me, I think you told me there was a previous name of the city. Can you say the Roman name of the city?
Isn't that something like Serdica?
Yeah. Who said it as well? Can you catch? The city of Serdica. This was the name of the Roman city. And every Roman city was built with two main streets. They cross like this. And they're called the Decumanus Maximus and the Corda. Right now we're standing on the Decumanus Maximus street that connected the eastern gate to the western gate. So until now, on our tour today, we haven't actually went out of the Roman city of Serdica. We have only been inside the city of Serdica. All right. So, have you heard the saying, all roads lead to Rome? That's fake news. Not all roads lead to Rome. It's just impossible. But some roads used to lead to Rome, and one of them was called the Via Diagonalis, the diagonal road that led actually from Constantinople, which is nowadays Istanbul, to Rome. Our city Serdica became important because it was on this important strategic road. So this city, when the Romans had it, became the capital of an eastern province. Second story about the Roman Empire, I'm going to finish here. It's very embarrassing. In the year 2000, a Bulgarian company, started digging. They bought a property and digged for the foundations of a hotel. So they started digging and they found a massive remains of what was an amphitheater. So they asked some Italian scientists, can you guys come and look at it? The Italians came, they looked at it and they said, Mamma mia, you know, it's very good. They said this is the second biggest amphitheater of the Roman Empire after the Colosseum. Second biggest amphitheater in Serdica. Daily gladiator fights. We found bones of elephants, lions, massive gladiator fights. But have you seen it while we were walking in Sofia? Probably not. In the year 2000, they allowed a hotel to be built on top of the amphitheater. So the second biggest amphitheater of the Roman Empire is a hotel built on top of it. The hotel was built, it's called Arena di Serdica, but karma is a bitch, and the hotel bankrupted during the pandemic. They made their lobby with glass floors, so their own guests can pay more money and stay and see, you know, have dinner on top of this historical site. I promise when I become the emperor of this great country, I'll put explosives, I'll bomb it. Next time you come, we go to the public bathhouse, we get naked, we get clean, and then we see the amphitheater. I'll make you a tour. Until now, you cannot see it, and now we're going to leave the gate of the city and go outside of the city walls of the Roman city of Serdica.
There's really nothing to see anymore from the theater.
From the theater, just a little bit from the inside.
But it's still there. Only it's on
Yes,
below the
yes. The hotel is called.
But the hotel doesn't exist anymore.
Yes. It exists physically, but not as a museum. Currently, no. The government is trying now to make a little museum. But unfortunately, they already built it, so it's very hard to destroy. It is what it is. Let's move on, guys. And where are you guys from? I didn't ask you. Where are you from? symbolic. The country is ruled by the prime minister. We have a prime minister. So, current politics right now, what is happening in Bulgaria? We are currently in a very complicated situation. I need your maximum focus and attention. How does it work? We had one political party. You can remember them as party number one. Party number one ruled the country for 12 years until 2020. We had one party that always won the elections and ruled the country. In 2020, we had massive protests. They lost power, and since 2020, we had 5 elections without a government. They cannot form majority government, so we had 5 elections. We Bulgarians are very similar, like my friends in Israel, very similar situation. We had 5 elections. 1 month ago, we had an election. There was a new party that during those 3 years emerged. So party number 1, 12 years. Party number 2, they began and they emerged as direct opponents of party number 1. Enemies, 2 enemies. Last elections, old party number 1 won first place. Party number 2 won second place. They're enemies, but guess who is going to rule together? Party number 1 and party number 2. The big enemies are now ruling together, and Bulgaria is not going to have one prime minister. We're going to have 2 prime ministers, and they're going to rotate every 6 months. Prime minister from party number 1, prime minister from party number 2. I'm not gonna give you my personal opinion. I'll just say I'm not very happy about our political situation.
So this for the next mandate of rotating the
For 4 years, every 6 months, yes, there's going to be a switch. What? Yes.
Then we're going to the left side.
Yes. It is what it is. It is what it is. Both of them, party number 1 and 2, promised multiple times they're gonna not make a coalition together. They promised it like multiple times for the last year. They said there is no chance we're gonna make a coalition, and now we're in this very unstable coalition. But it is what it is. Now, no more politics. We're gonna move in the backyard of the presidency building. Just every 6 months. 6 months.
E poi c'è l'opus reticulatum che è messo quelli a losanga, ci sono messi i pupetti a losanga tutti in fila così.
You guys come closer?
C'è l'opus a cazzo.
Certo, è tutto sotto il certo, capito?
Guys, come a little closer. All right. This will be our oldest building today. Today we're not seeing an older building. And obviously there is only one civilization that can build something to last that old. And this was built by the Roman Empire. The Romans built it in the 2nd century. It's now a church called St. George, around the church, but the Romans didn't build it as a church. They built it, we believe, as a luxurious spa resort, a vacation place. The building, a little bit of a sauna, so this was the place where rich Romans, influential Romans came to, have a massage, relax, sauna, maybe a cocktail, a beer. I don't know how the Romans had fun, but this was what it was used for. It became a church. Then the Ottomans took power. Can you guess what did the Ottomans turn it into? A mosque. Then we turned it into a church again. So it changed its purpose multiple times. And then in 1955, the communists were building this architectural complex. And they had a plan for this building. They wanted to make a parking lot on top of it. To totally destroy the oldest building in the city and top 10 oldest building in Europe. They wanted to turn it into a parking lot because in Bulgaria, religion was not exactly the best thing during communism. Religion was legal, it was not criminalized, but if you were religious, let's say you guys are a student in school, in high school, you go to the church, you go to the mosque, whatever religion you practice, they write your name in a list. You apply to university and you have certain rights restricted. You don't get accepted to university just because you're a Christian or a Muslim. So they didn't want all this building in the city to be visible and to be a religious building, so they decided to build a parking lot on top of it. But one lady who was a historian, an archaeologist, she was very brave and very intelligent archaeologist. A lot of things in Sofia were discovered by her. She told the communist guys, please, this is the oldest building. Why don't you build surrounding it so it's not visible? So this area here is purposefully built in a square like this to hide the building. It was purposefully built into three surrounding buildings. The name of the building? The lady. Name is Ivanova. I don't know her legal name. She was a communist actually, but she was also an archaeologist. So the building itself is now a church, and it's free of charge. After the tour, if you want to see some of the buildings, every single temple in the city, free of charge. So feel free to visit it on the inside as well, if you feel like. Now, we're ready to move. I speak little French, but I cannot understand when you talk a lot. Quand je lis, je comprends un peu, mais quand les hommes parlaient, je ne comprends pas, c'est très difficile. Ouais, rapidement aussi. But I understand. I need to learn. I started learning it by myself in the pandemic because I had nothing to do. I was like, let's pick a language. Because I had online lessons. It's very hard. I'm not disciplined, so I need to go to real lessons, a tutor to learn it. Yes, French is very difficult, but I like it. And it's like, it's a good language to speak. Like Spanish, maybe it's the best to speak, but I like French more in how it sounds. Like just the sound of it, like how I like it. Spanish is maybe the best for the tour guide because all of South America speaks Spanish, so it's millions of people for a tour guide to have and also Spanish. And French is also very good because French is spoken in North Africa as well. So it's a good language to speak. Someday I will learn it. Maybe next year. This is, I think this every year. Speak to me French. Was church at this? I was wondering. No, but it's been really good.
Ma no, questo qui sta Alright. Maybe I should not do it still. You'll give me a name. I'll give you a name.
Non, je pense pas parce que Romain ne savait pas.
All right. This little park right here, it's called the City Garden. This little park. We Bulgarians, we call it the National because it's next to the National Theatre. The National Theatre is one of an interesting example of architecture before World War II. This was built by an Austrian architect, the National Theatre, and this was lucky to survive the bombings of World War II. It was only damaged at the back. The front was not touched by a bomb. The yellow building there, it was also lucky to kind of survive the bombings. This is before World War II, but it was in a different color. The park is known for one interesting detail. The National Park is known for a Bulgarian characteristic, which is
Lying on the ground in the train?
yeah, that's an interesting one, and also public drinking. Public drinking in Bulgaria is legal and culturally accepted. So when I was a student, this was one of the parks that in Friday night, Saturday night, all the students come here, they get a beer, wine, and enjoy the day. The National Theatre is named by a famous Bulgarian writer called Ivan Vazov, but it's not very interesting for tourists. At the end of the tour, if you're interested to read a Bulgarian book in English or your own languages, I can give you 2 recommendations at the end of the tour. So feel free to come to me and ask me, and I'll tell you books that I recommended, translated into 40, 50 languages. Let's move on, guys.
Il y a François, bah, ça a été touché avec des dentelles. Ça y est, c'était déjà on est dans le vide derrière. Et ça, c'était pareil, pas au même niveau que ça, mais c'était pas la même couleur. T'as vu à un moment, ouais, des likes comme tout à l'heure. Non, je sais pas des likes.
Also die haben sehr naturwissenschaftlich und zwar, also zum Beispiel auch sowas, ja, da geht jedes Kind auch
Let's just sit here for a second. Oh, nice box. A little lazy spot. Where are you guys going? All right. Let's talk a little bit about monarchy. Kings, emperors, tsars. So in Bulgaria, the monarchs, they're not a king, not the emperor, they're a tsar. That's the Eastern European title. Okay, Bulgaria was part of the Ottoman Empire for 500 years. So how did this work? 500 years, no Bulgaria, no independence. We get our independence and we become a monarchy, but we are a small country. And now we are a monarchy, but without a tsar. We don't have a tsar. So how can we choose a tsar? Well, at the time, the great European powers basically got into a room and chose a monarch for us, a non-Bulgarian one. Kind of married, yes, to the German crown, but not only. We were basically imported a monarch. We took one guy and we took him here and told him, you are now the monarch, but the problem was we had no palace. Sofia became the capital for the first time. Before that, actually Sofia, Bulgaria, had another capital, totally other city. This became the capital only 150 something years ago. This building was not a palace, but we needed to use it as a palace, so we declared this to become the palace. We emptied it, we put some golden lamps and fancy monarchical furniture. We closed, the government closed this entire park. This entire little garden was closed from the public and they called it backyard of the palace. The city garden that I just showed you, they closed it for the public and made it the front yard of the palace, and this became the palace. And I'll tell you a funny and interesting story about our monarch. So what was the name of the monarch that you already know about? With a B? Boris the Third, yes. Boris, this guy died after his meeting with Hitler in 1943, just 2 years before the end of the war. He died, and 2 years more left before we became a communist country. So for those 2 years, we had a child Tsar. A very little guy, Simeon, became the monarch for 2 years. When the communists came, he needed to escape because the communists don't quite like monarchs. They usually hang them on a tree. So the Tsar needed with the entire royal family to escape. Bulgaria became a communist country. He lived in exile for 50 years in Spain. He lived there, and in the 90s when we became democracy, he came back to Bulgaria, made a political party, went to the election, became a prime minister of the country, marking this the only example in the history of Europe, and someone told me the world. I'm not sure, I need to make a little bit more research, but definitely in the history of Europe, a royal figure, a monarch, to be democratically elected leader of the country. That's Simeon Saxo-Burgota. He became the only example of this in Europe in 2001. Bulgaria had the former Tsar become the prime minister. He became one of our most hated politicians. Unfortunately, nowadays he just somewhere. He's from the Saxo-Burgota family. Their official palace is in Vienna in Austria. They have palaces all over Europe, and 2 palaces are left in Bulgaria. This one is not a palace nowadays. This is owned by the government, and it's a national gallery. This is just a gallery. No longer Bulgaria is a monarchy, it's a republic, although we had a monarch for the prime minister. That's the story of the monarchy. Once an influential system in Bulgaria, If you're interested to learn more about Bulgaria, one of the figures you can read about is Boris III. Very controversial person. If you want to learn a little bit more about World War II and how smaller countries got into it, he's an interesting one. Very controversial. Let's move on, guys. We have one more final spot. Let's see it.
כל פעם האינטראקציה היא קצת שונה, כי יש פה אנשים אחרים, אז פתאום בדיחה אחרת.
Basically, a lot of cities in Germany and Italy were bombed as well. In Bulgaria, I know the Russian story. For example, here there were houses that took the style of the green one. But the communists came and everything was so destroyed they left the ground to build those people. It's a very big contrast. It's very interesting. Some people love it, some people hate it. There's all kinds of processes. Dat deze ook wel gehouden wordt. Voor een hoofdsteek. How can this name the city? All the travelers remembered the name of the city, not by its real name, but they called the city after the Sofia church. Because the city was this way. The city after the Sofia church, we gave up. We basically said, okay, if you're only going to remember, let's make it simple and call it Sofia after the church so that people can remember it. We had a totally other name for the city, but we gave up. That's the story of how this named the city. This is a church. The Ottomans, when they took power, they turned it into a mosque. When we got our independence back, we turned it into the fire brigade. We had no money to turn it back to a church, so this was the fire police. And last but not least, I would like to tell you a story about the Alexander Nevsky Cathedral, which you cannot see very well, maybe a little bit of it. Alexander Nevsky Cathedral, biggest church in the city. On the Balkan, in this region, we are small countries. Bulgaria, Serbia, Romania, Greece. And we always compare who has the biggest size of their church, you know, cathedral, etc. For a while, this was the biggest Orthodox cathedral on the Balkans. But the Serbians got a little jealous. They built slightly bigger in Belgrade, in the capital of Serbia. Now the Romanians learned about it and they're building slightly bigger cathedral in Romania. We have a joke because we have the tallest peak, mountain peak is in Bulgaria, that the Greek people will start putting stones on top of their peak to make it a little bigger. Alexander Nevsky, biggest cathedral in the city, is named after a saint that the locals don't know about. That's interesting. Who is Alexander Nevsky? Not a Bulgarian saint. He's a Russian one, comrades. So why is our biggest cathedral called Alexander Nevsky, Russian saint? Well, the story is the following. This was built after we gained our independence from the Ottoman Empire, and the Russian army helped us get our independence. A very big reason that Bulgaria became independent at all was Russia. So we named our cathedral to show some gratitude. In World War I, Bulgaria became enemies with Russia. We fight with Russia, we had a lot of political problems with them, so we just changed the name of the cathedral to Saint Cyril and Methodius. So we just changed the name. The war ended, Alexander Nevsky again. World War II. We changed the name of the cathedral because we were enemies with Russia to Cyril and Methodius. The war ended, Alexander Nevsky again. 1 year and a half ago, when Russia invaded Ukraine, our politicians started saying maybe it's a good time to change the name of the cathedral for a third time. So now they said, oh no, it's not because of any political reasons. We were thinking maybe it's a refreshment, we're making an infrastructural change here. Why not change the name? So now they think about changing the name of the cathedral for a third time. Do you guys know? This is the last question on the tour. Who are Saint Cyril and Methodius? Have you heard about them?
Cyrillic alphabet.
Cyrillic alphabet. All right. Can you catch? Cyrillic alphabet. I gave them a candy. This is the wrong answer, by the way. But it's very close by. Which alphabet do we use now? Here we write in the Cyrillic alphabet. Two people invented the first. Is this a prank? I feel like any moment the TikToker will come and will say, we purposefully made it louder so that you get very loud today. Cyril and Methodius, two people that invented the first ever Slavic alphabet. They were Greek brothers from Thessaloniki in northern Greece, and they invented our first alphabet called the Glagolitic, not the Cyrillic alphabet. Nowadays we use the Cyrillic alphabet, but we used to have the Glagolitic alphabet first. They had two students called Clement and Naum, based in Bulgaria. The worst question you can ask here, don't ask Bulgarians this question if you don't want to get into, a fist fight. Why do you use the Russian alphabet? This is a very bad question because the Cyrillic alphabet was actually created here by those two people, Clement and Naum. They created the Cyrillic alphabet, and for 200 years it spread around Europe, Eastern Europe, and from here it moved to Russia, to Ukraine, to Belarus, Mongolia, etc., etc., etc. So as a small country, imagine that we have some national pride from it. 400 million, almost 400 million people use it. Third official alphabet in the European Union, and 13 more countries use this alphabet. So us as a small country, no one knows that we invented it because there are a few more bigger countries that use it, but it actually came from here. So please don't ask this question if you don't want to, get into some altercation. I'm joking. No one is going to be that nationalistic. This was my last story for today. I know it's hot. I know you're tired. I'm not going to bore you with a dramatic exit. I just want to mention, I know it's a lot of stories and you cannot remember all of them. I want you to remember just the ones you like. Maybe about the terrorist attack in a church, maybe about World War II, maybe about a monarch that became a prime minister, maybe we invented an alphabet, blah, blah, blah. Whatever you feel like remembering, just remember that. I hope I sparked some curiosity about the country I love, the city I love, the city of Sofia. Thank you for coming in. It was my pleasure being your tour